Today is going to be a fun one, a quick one, an easy one. We've got a beautiful, completed suit jacket, sleeve shortened, but we're missing one key component. We need to get the buttons back on this sleeve to finish this up. Let's get started. Let's go over our gear first. Obviously, we've got the buttons. I like to keep them on this little safety pin because every time I don't do this, I lose one and never find it again. And let me tell you something, that's a much bigger nightmare than you could ever imagine. You don't want to find out. So we're gonna put those little guys over there. Let's pick our thread. This one is always gonna be waxed skein for me. And I wanna show you how I store this because it's one of my favorite things. What does this remind you of? Janitor's key ring? That's because it is. I literally typed that into Amazon to find this. And we keep it on a little pattern hook so that we can hook it anywhere we want, just like on ourselves or on gear all over the shop. And then I keep this gorgeous array of colors. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna jump to the front of my suit jacket and look at the front button. And what color do we see there? We see kind of a nice gray, light to medium gray. That's what I'm gonna try to pick out. So let's flip through my little catalog of skein. Do we like that one? I like that one, but I think it might be a little bit, is that a little too, that's a little too light for me. We're gonna go with this darker one. I like that guy. Next, snips, needles, little white pencil marking tool, and I like this guy that has this little tiny rubber brush on the back, just in case I can see the white mark later. This is not a heat erasable or like, basically it doesn't go away. It's a true colored pencil, and so when we make these marks, that's great because they stay, but sometimes you gotta like brush them off afterwards if you can still see them. So that's what I like about this guy. And then finally, my button placement marking card. Boy, oh boy, when I found this little beauty. As you can see, it has a adorable little ruler down here, and then a 3 set, 4 set, and 2 set. This is exactly what it looks like. You're gonna stick this little pencil straight through the hole, and we're gonna mark it on the sleeve. Now, before we jump into all of that, I wanna talk about needles for a hot sec because you can really go in the weeds on this. So if you want to know more about this, you're going to have to tell me about it because we could go on forever. I'm going to tell you what I'm using and then you tell me what you want to know. This little pack is a Colonial brand, which is a great one. I also use Richard and Hemming Sons. Those are probably my two favorites. They're both from England. And cheap and easy. They're nice, they're good, they're easy to find. The assortment pack is good because it gives me a couple of each, and the typical assortment pack has got sharps, crewels, and darners. That's right. And the sharps are going to be the easiest for most sewing operations. Darners I don't use very much myself because they're the longer ones with a long eye, and I find them cumbersome. Not just because my hands are small, but because most of the time when I'm doing hand sewing, I just don't want all of that room. I don't need that. I know that's what it's for, darning, hemming, being able to pick up a lot of fabric at once, but I don't like the lack of agility, flexibility that the sharps give me. So, just to recap, I'm a sharps girl, and if you want to know more, you have to tell me. Okay, now, I'm gonna pull one of those out, and we're gonna get threaded up here. So let's jump back over to our thread selection. And what I love about skein is these bad boys are pre-cut. So do you see this length here? This is doubled up inside. And so all I'm getting is what you can see here times 2. You'll notice it is not a coincidence that it is, I'm a little on the short side, but it is roughly the length of your forearm. That, ladies and gentlemen, is completely intentional. That is because that is about how far you can pull your needle out before it goes too far and you have to make this big motion, in which time all of your thread is getting tangled on itself, to come back down and keep sewing. So the length of these same for roughly 1,000 years. And that is because it is anatomically appropriate. Okay, now you're gonna pull 2 out. I like to use 2 because I'm lazy and because I like this to move fast. So when I pull 2 pieces of thread and double them over, which is what I'm gonna do, that gives me, you guessed it, 4. And then when I have 4, it means that I only have to run this through the button like 2 or 3 times before I move on to the next button. And boy, I just love efficiency. So I've doubled it over totally evenly. This is 4 pieces of thread. And then I'm gonna even up the bottoms here and just roll a waist knot. We've got the bottom of our 4 threads right here. I'm gonna roll them between my pointer finger and my thumb, and then I'm gonna roll the thread around my finger and then use my thumb and my second finger to pull that knot off. I know you can't see that, but you can see what I'm doing where I'm tightening and pulling. This is called a waist knot. It's not the prettiest knot in the whole world, but it is easy and it is fast, and we're gonna hide it, so I don't care. All right, now that this is good, we're gonna mark out our button placement and get rolling. Again, we're right here at the bottom of our traditional mitered edge faux placket. Why do I call it faux? Here's the thing. Even though I can lift these and separate them, there is no actual functioning buttonholes, and so we would still call this a classic faux button placket. Either way, we're gonna sew the buttons directly on and directly through all the way to the inside. So let's mark that out by placing our card literally directly on that corner. This is what it's designed for. So this is on the mitered edge, and you wanna make sure that everything is pressed and flat and square before you do this, because remember, this is the finishing touch. It's gonna hold whatever you've got here in place. So if these are screwed up, fix that now. You can't fix that after this is done. This is it, okay? So I'm gonna take my 4 button, which is probably the most common. Sometimes they'll have a 3. And I'm gonna place the corner right in my mitered edge corner. And then I'm gonna take my sharpened pencil and just boop, go directly down or up the sleeve, let's say. Now, that might be hard to see, but remember, that's okay because this colored pencil is semi-permanent. So I'll try to mark them as best I can, but that nice little mark is exactly what I need there, okay? This is going to give us what we would call a kissing placement. So if you're wanting, let me show you. They're going to just kiss when they're done. If you are looking for a cascading placement, you're gonna wanna bunch this up more, okay? So that'll be a different one. This is all about kissing this time. Now I'm going to reach my hand inside to gently push the lining and the fabric in general flat. I'm gonna leave all of that flat against the palm of my hand. This is the moment that I should, okay, hold on. This is the moment when I should address that I believe half of you will think I'm doing this wrong. I do thread the buttons all the way through the lining. I know. Some people hate it. They think it's not professional. They think, oh my God, what are you doing? You were supposed to do this way before you close the sleeve. I get it. But believe it or not, that is a matter of opinion. And I personally love to have the extra anchor of sewing all the way through the outer and the lining. Yes, I know that it leaves a little bit of thread that you can see on the inside. 4 little pock marks from the buttons. Yes, I am aware of that. The stability that I think it lends the coat for the majority of the population who just like jams their jacket on and jumps into the car, I really think, including my husband, I really think that having the extra security of sewing it all the way through gives the sleeve stability and just gives it a great, stiffer, general overall look. So this is a personal preference for me. If you want to sew these buttons on before you've closed the lining, you do it. You are not wrong. But this is the way I do it. Okay, back to the show. So I'm gonna place my left hand inside, again, like I said, to keep the lining and outer fabric smooth. And I'm gonna keep that kind of position there most of the time that I'm going. I'm gonna put my needle in from the outside, or the correct side. And again, I'm doing that so that I can hide my little knot under the button I'm about to place, versus having that knot showing on the inside. So I'm going straight down, directly through, holding my edges together, keeping everything square and clean and beautiful. See? So yes, I know you can see it, but I'm about to cover it, so it's okay. Now, next huge key, keep that stitching as tight as humanly possible so that even though it is visible, it's gonna look nice. Now we've gone down and up and we're ready to put the button on. I'm gonna match the pattern that they've used. So here on the front of the jacket, they did a perpendicular, perpendicular. The other option would be parallel, parallel. And whatever they've done on the front is what I'm going to copy on the sleeve. So they've done perpendicular. So I have my needle coming up through that top hole, and now I'm gonna go straight across and come directly down through again, trying to keep all of my thread grouped together underneath in as small of a stitching dot as possible. And right here, you want to check and make sure you're not going over that edge, because that will make that look weird as well. You really want that button rim to be at least of 1/8 of an inch from the edge. And then as we go up, we're going to keep it as straight as we possibly can. So come back down to the bottom. We're going to come back up through, and I'm going to give it one more stitch exactly where I just stitched. Oop, there we go. Awesome. This button is the most likely one at the bottom here to get crushed in the car door or hit on the desk or whatever. So making sure that this one is really secure is a huge priority for me. That's why I'm going to go through twice. That means each direction is going to have 8 threads going through. That is a little bit overkill for a button that doesn't even get fastened. So I'm aware of that, but I'm going to do it on that first one there. Okay, now we've gone through both twice. And now on this next pull up through, I'm going to come up to the side of the button. Do you see my little needle right there, not coming up through one of the holes? We're coming up to the side and underneath. You see that? And now I'm going to do something that I call a thread shank. I'm going to wrap this thread tightly around once, just once. It's giving it a little extra stability underneath. And then I'm going to slide my needle through that shank and through the fabric up to my next little white pencil mark. Okay, before I pull it through, let me show you the underside as well. This is how I keep from having to tie off every individual button, because I do not have time or patience for that. What's really important is we do not want to see that needle anywhere in there. We want to make sure that we're going completely between the layers of fabric as we move up to our next button position. So we've done the thread shank. Now we're coming up and gently pulling nice and tight, but not too tight that we crinkle the fabric, just enough. And then we're going to check one more time underneath before we get started again and make sure that we didn't catch any of that long needle thread going through. And it's great. Okay, hand back inside to smooth. And we don't have to tie a knot. We don't have to do anything. We're literally just going to go pick up our next button. We're already ready to go. Yoink. I'm going to use this thumb of the left hand that is holding the sleeve straight and hold that button in position. In position means equidistant from the edge of the placket, just like the one below, and like I said, touching or kissing the button that we just placed. So I'm going to hold that there and then perpendicular, go straight across again. And I'm feeling underneath to make sure that I've got all of that lining smooth, and then I'm pulling through again. Awesome. Great. All right, and then I'm going to place the needle almost exactly where I just pulled it through, and I'm going to come to the other perpendicular up top. There we go. Again, holding everything in position. This is a little bit trickier than it seems to get it nice and clean. But remember, this is the last impression, that you're going to get. Or first. This is the last step, but first impression that you're going to get of this procedure when somebody sees it. Now I'm going to come back up through. And again, I'm already going to go off to the side here because that is 4 whole threads in each direction, and that's plenty to keep that on. Then 1 wrap, thread shank, hold with my thumb, and then we're going to do exactly the same thing again. We're coming up in between the fabric layers to our next little white mark there. And before I pull it through, I look every time because I don't want to make that mistake. Trying to get rid of a long thread that accidentally slipped through on the lining side, nightmare situation. So look every single time. Trust me, you'll be glad. Great. And again, we're pulling tight, nice and tight, and we're already going to pick up that other one. See, once we get going on this, it can go really fast. Maybe we'll even do like a speed time lapse of the other one, the other slave, just so that you can see. That'd be fun. All right. Coming down to make sure that there are no wrinkles. And then coming back up through on the other perpendicular. Great. I'm also checking frequently to make sure that there are no thread like loops caught on the underside. I really want to be very, very diligent about my tiny little thread pock marks on the other side. And then straight across and straight down again. So there's a lot of flipping, a lot of back and forth. And then as I come up on this one, it's already time to come off to the side and give our thread wrap 1 quick loop. And last one. Coming up in between. Do not skip this step. Look and make sure that you don't see any needle. Because if you see needle, you're going to see thread after you pull it all the way through. And once you pull that eye through, once you pull it into the fabric, you're done. I mean, that's not true. You can probably ease it back through, but it's a nightmare. Don't do it. Just look. Just look instead. And last one. Yoink. And again, straight through. On the 4th one, I find that my little finger, it has a lot of trouble reaching up there. So just make sure as you're pulling it through that you kind of, are easing it into place where you want it to be. And I'll give that a quick look to make sure it's straight. Yes, awesome. Great, great, great. Come back down under and we're going to do that last perpendicular. And I'm pulling tight every single time. Not too tight, but firm. Firm every single time. Having these buttons nice and just tight enough is really the key to the most beautiful, clean finish. And then to finish it off, I'm going to come up, off to the side again, just like with every other button, pull through, and then we're going to wrap that shank, and then we're going to tie it off. So I'm going to push this button off and slide my needle through that thread and tie a knot. Before this loop gets too tight, I'm going to slide my needle through again. First knot, and then let's do it again. Slide my needle through the thread shank, and before that loop gets too tight, slide my needle through again, pull it tight. I'm going to do that twice for sure. Now, this is where people would come and snip it right there, but you know what? We're not going to do that because that's dangerous. And I don't live dangerously like that. I want my buttons to stay on. So now we're going to do this little trick that I love where we're going to slide the needle in between the fabric layers again. Check one more time, make sure the needle isn't showing. And what we're doing here is hiding our thread tails inside of the garment, never to be heard from again. And then we're going to snip it. And that, look at that, is the way that I keep from having to clip right next to the button and potentially weaken all of that great work that we've done. Oh my God, this is beautiful. I love it. I love it. So what we're looking at here is, are they straight? And you can kind of maneuver them a little bit. Are they equidistant from the placket? And do they just generally look good? With just the smallest of thread pock marks on the inside, everything else is laying nice and flat. You can still move the bottom of that placket. And then sometimes I'll give it a little press just to crisp it up at the very end. But that's it. We're good to go. Perfect. Love it. In one hot second, we went from this slick sleeve, nothing going on here, holding it in place, to this little beauty. Beautiful, kissing little, delightful buttons. Thank you so much for joining me on this one. Tell me if you have any tricks of your own that I should be checking out. Like, subscribe, do all the things, and we'll see you soon.